Today I have my version of a sermon for you. I wrote something which to me kind of feels like I'm giving a sermon, but of course it is not a sermon because sermons don't work. There is no way in which embodied language is going to be handed to you on a peer-reviewed silver plate, because those who do the research, they would first have to individually acquire embodied language to be able to investigate it. The single subject, the N-as-1, is the golden standard for embodied language, and its objective truth can only be verified by those who subjectively have explored it on their own, alone, by talking out loud and by listening to themselves first, and by acknowledging, of course, that there is a tremendous difference between listening to yourself while you speak, engaging in embodied language, and not listening to yourself while you speak and engaging in disembodied language, trying to get other people to listen to you, or listening to other people. And so you are listening to this sermon, but of course I'm not really giving a sermon. I only pretend to be giving a sermon. And I poke fun at the sermon in the same way that I poke fun at peer review, because peer review and sermonizing is not getting us to embodied language. So as I have said, only those who have verified on their own first what is this difference between disembodied language, not listening to yourself while you speak, and embodied language, listening to yourself while you speak. Only those people who have done that, they can do research on this. They can explore what this is and how this works. And it makes total sense, right? If you are having embodied language. Thus, embodied language, sorry, there's a mosquito landing on me. Embodied language upends the old paradigm that we must learn individually from what others have proven to be true. In embodied language, we recognize what is true for ourselves, and of course, this is also true for others if they would do what we do, which is speak with themselves and listen to themselves. Yes, there's something really tricky going on, because what others have proven to be true is always excluded embodied language, has always excluded embodied language. So as long as you keep listening to others, you will not hear anything about embodied language unless you hear somebody like me who on his own authority speaks about it. The fact that we haven't reasoned our way from what is true for us individually to what is true for others as well signifies that we have lost our ability to trust each other. And therefore, we always demand some kind of peer review, albeit merely the commonly shared superstition of a group rather than the empirical truth. I'm talking about the empirical truth. You may not believe me, that's fine, but for me it is true, as an individual, that my embodied language works. So in effect, I was just saying, I repeat that last sentence just to make sure you get the flow of this sermon, that we have lost trust and we have been made to have faith in the group. And the group perpetuates the superstition of disembodied language, in which we believe in the existence of inner language. So that's not empirical, that's not scientific at all. In effect, since we rely on group behavior, we are extremely vulnerable to being suckered into all sorts of dogma, especially since it plays into our unfulfilled need for true safety and the reality that we are constantly feeling threatened and feeling like we want to avoid the danger, we want to avoid what is unpleasant, we want to avoid what we don't like. And so we're constantly defending, fighting, fleeing, avoiding, and freezing. And the need for security is never met by our language, because it could only be met by embodied language in which we listen to ourselves while we speak. Yeah. In short, we never get any real relief unless we begin to rely on the single subject. Here's the sun, the single subject. But since we distrust those who say to trust ourselves by exploring our own disembodied language and the difference between our disembodied language and our embodied language, we keep being fooled by the disembodied language, which is everywhere, 24/7. And this simple text is like a new sermon, because none of the old sermons have ever addressed that we must speak with ourselves in order to be able to listen to ourselves and to hear our own truth. Yeah, I need to read this one again. This simple text is like a new sermon, because none of the old sermons have ever addressed that we must speak with ourselves in order to be able to listen to ourselves and to hear our own truth. Anyone who would seriously consider these words would liberate him or herself instantaneously and permanently from their history of conditioning with disembodied language, even while acknowledging that the work, even while acknowledging that the work has only just started. Yes, because even though you may experience the truth of what I'm saying, your history of conditioning with disembodied language is going to come up again, and you will have to counteract that history. You will have to catch yourself having that history. You will have to let yourself know that you don't want to have that history anymore. You will have to let yourself know that you prefer embodied language, and only then will your embodied language continue.